Yesterday, we were talking about the basic of IdentityNow system. We talked about that what features a identity management and governance solution will provide you. There we talked about the first and foremost feature of any identity management software is the user lifecycle management. That okay, you are going to perform the user lifecycle management using this identity management tool. Now let's take an example. Now when we talk about that okay, the user lifecycle management is being taken care by the identity management system, it means that there is a prerequisite. The prerequisite is you must load all the users, all the users into identity management solution, into identity management tool. Only then, once all the users are present in the identity management solution, then only you can do the user lifecycle management. Then only you can do user lifecycle management, right? Now let's say recently identity classes thought of implementing this IGS solution. Identity classes thought of implementing this IGS solution. So as on a very top level, what happens basically whenever company take a call that okay, they wanted to implement a solution, basically identity management solution for their own organization, they basically creates the RFP, that is a request for proposal. On a high level, they create RFP. Now, when they create the RFP, they send the RFP publicly. That okay, like the way government, whenever government want to do any task, they create a tender and then all the vendors who are interested in that tender, they submit their rate and what kind of flexibility features they are going to provide. In similar way, in a IT organization, whenever a company is planning to implement some solution, they create the RFP. Now once they create the RFP, there will be multiple vendors that will come to them with multiple solutions. Let's say when identity classes raises the RFP, there are a couple of companies which are interested. Out of that, let me name a couple of them. Let's say Wipro, Cognizant, PwC, and Deloitte. They were interested in the RFP. Okay, now what they have done, let's say Wipro proposes the IIQ solution. That okay, in order to handle your use case scenario, IIQ will be the best fit. And they also talked about how much expenses or cost it is going to required. Okay, in similar way, let's say Cognizant talked about that okay, since you are a very small organization, it's better you go ahead with identity now. And they also talk about that okay, how much budget it is required. PwC talked about Savient, that okay, in order to solve your problem, Savient would be the best tool. Now all these middle parties, okay, these are the consultancy service provider. Okay, all these middle parties have one or two favorite tool. Okay, depending upon the margin they are going to earn whenever they sell the solution. Okay, Now let's say Wipro has a good margin on the IAQ, and they also look out in the back end that okay, whether they have the resource pool available to deploy or implement this project for you or not. Depending upon their own resource pool, let's say Wipro has a lot of IAQ engineers, so they know that okay, they will be easily able to handle it. On the contrast, Wipro no, they don't have identity now people right now. So either they are going to do a fresh recruitment, but they don't want to take a chance. That's why they go ahead with proposing this IQ solution because the margin was also better. Okay. Now let's say once they proposes everything, it's identity classes who is going to take a call that okay, which is the best proposal for them. Let's say they selected Cognizant as their implementation partner. As their implementation partner. Now Cognizant will help identity classes to procure the license of identity now and to help the implementation of the project as well. Okay. Now let's say the partner is decided identity classes is getting help from Cognizant for the implementation part. Okay. Now the next phase come into the picture. The Whenever you are going to do any identity management project implementation, whenever you are going to do any identity management project implementation, generally it break in phases. Generally it went in phases. Let's say we have phase 1, then we have let's say phase 2, and at last let's say we have phase 3. At last we have phase 3. After completing phase 1 we are moving to phase 2, and from phase 2 we are moving to phase 3. Okay. Now as part of phase 1, what we are generally or what our identity management implementation will be having, as part of phase 1 what we are going to do, we are going to basically load the users or contractors, because that is the first phase. When you for starting the lifecycle management, you need to load the users, right? Organization may have you internal employee, may have contractors, may have vendors as well. Okay. So at the phase 1 we are going to first onboard the authoritative sources. Okay, in technical term we call it as onboard. Now what is authoritative? Authoritative means that trusted source, or we are going to basically load the user from the HRMS system. Okay, then on phase 1 itself we are also going to onboard couple of target systems as well. We are also going to onboard target applications as well. Preferably we go ahead with Active Directory or LDAP. Okay, so we onboard also couple of target applications which are now being managed via SailPoint. Okay, Once you do these two things, then the third step comes into the picture. It's basically in the phase one itself, we are also going to configure birthright. We are also going to configure the birthright access, that okay, on day one which users have access to what resources. Okay, so these were the basic things that we generally used to do as part of phase one. Okay, now in phase two, what we generally used to do, we onboard the second level priority application. We onboard second level priority application. Okay, so on phase two, onboard second priority application. Then they also wanted to implement the compliance module. Implement compliance. Okay, inside compliance, they might want to go ahead with, let's say, certification or access review. They might wanted to go ahead with policies, that is segregation of duties and all. Okay, now on phase three, they want to onboard the third priority applications and couple of other things. Okay, so this is how a identity management project implementation goes. So the first step is basically, if right now we were talking about in the phase one, directly loading the users and all, we didn't talk anything about installation and all, because we are talking in context with a SaaS identity based solution. Because whenever we talk about a SaaS solution, it's not our headache to do any kind of stuff. Okay, now in phase one, however, we might have to take care of couple of important stuffs which I forgot to mention over here. In the phase one, when we talk about, now we are specifically talking more towards identity now project implementation. Okay, so on phase one, we are also going to, basically the first thing that we are going to do as well as part of phase one is deploying and configuring virtual appliance. This is a very important step. This is going to be the first step. Now, what is a virtual appliance? We'll discuss that thing a little bit later, not now. Okay. So these are all the high level steps for any identity management project implementation. Okay. Now let's go ahead with the next part of action. Anyone, any question on this part? I take it as a no. Okay. So let's move forward. Now, what we are going to talk about, we are going to talk about the identity classes. Identity classes. Let's say currently identity classes have got two different HRMS system. A company may have multiple HRMS system. That is possible. Okay. Now identity classes has got two different HRMS system. The first HRMS system is employee management system. Employee management system. And the second HRMS system is basically contractor management. So all the internal employees are being managed via this employee management system. So it contains all the internal full-time employees. And contractor management system contains all the contractors and third-party vendors. So the identity classes has got two different HRMS system. Now the first step that we wanted to perform is basically, in order to do the lifecycle management, we need to load all the users into the identity now or identity management solution. Now, in order to do that, what we are going to do, the employee management system get in touch with the SailPoint team. Okay, during the initial discussions, we come to figure out that they are going to send us the feed file on daily basis. They are going to send us the employee dump, employee data feed on daily basis. Similarly, contractor management system also said they are going to provide us the contractor data feed file on daily basis. Okay. Now how this feed file look like? The feed file basically look like this. Let me open the feed file. Okay. So the feed file basically look like this. We have the employee ID. So this file basically modified couple of things. Let me open the feed file in a notepad plus plus. Okay, the feed file contains this information. We have the employee ID data that is coming from the HRMS system. We have the first name, we have the last name, we have the manager ID, that okay, who is the manager of the user. We have the full name, we have the email, we have department, we have region, location, whether the user is inactive or not, job title, cost center. So we are getting these information from the HRMS system. We are getting these information from the employee management system. Now here we have the data with us. Okay, now what we want to do, we wanted to first step, we wanted to load all the user base to our SailPoint IdentityNow system. This is what we wanted to do as part of the first phase. Now here, in order to do the hands-on lab, okay, there are couple of process that we all need to follow so that no one would modify someone else configuration, because we have single tenant that is being used by all of us during the training. So it's better for every one of us to follow some standard process so that it should not screw up the environment. Okay, so what we are going to do, whenever you define any application or source in SailPoint in identity now, once I grant you the access, what everyone need to do, they need to follow a process. If you are, let's say, defining a application, or let's say you are defining a source, application is referred as a source in identity now. So whenever you are defining a source, let's say you enter, or whatever the source name that you are giving, let's say I'm giving the source name as EMS, put a underscore and add your name. Add your name. If you are going to do a identity mapping, that is identity profile, generally we call it over here. What is identity profile and all, we'll discuss. Make sure you are doing, following the same convention over there as well. Whatever thing you are doing, put a underscore and then your name. Okay, so this is a standard process that everyone need to follow. Now let me add one user detail over here. Okay, I'm not going with this user. So we already have two employees right now in the organization. I'm going to create the third and fourth. We'll go ahead with maximum 10 to 12 users in the identity now, not more than that, because the tool has couple of limitations. Okay, so if for learning purpose, even a single user can with the help of single user, you can learn all the concepts. Okay, so what we are going to do, we are going to basically modify couple of things over here. Let me create the user based on Raju profile. Okay, so I'm going to give the details as 003. Let me give the detail over here as Raju. M. Manager for Raju is, let's say, 00001. Then let me give the full name, Raju dot M. Okay, this is what I am putting as a full name. Now email ID, I am going to put it over here. Raju, can you please ping me your Gmail ID on the chat? Now he's in the engineering team, senior architect. Region is, let's say, Asia, and location is, let's say, Mumbai. Now I have mentioned all the details: employee ID, first name, last name, manager ID, full name, email, department, region, location, inactive or not, inactive is false, job title, and cost center. Okay, now let me save this file. Okay, now whenever you wanted to, we have this feed file with us. Okay, and we want to create the or load the user into the identity now. So what steps that we need to follow whenever you come across this kind of thing where you wanted, where you get the data as part of the feed file and you wanted to basically create a authoritative aggregation or perform a authoritative aggregation, there are a couple of steps that we need to follow. First, let me open the identity now console. Okay, so I'm just logging in into the identity now console. So let me go to this connections. Under connection you will see sources. Okay, now what we are going to do, we are going to create a new source. Okay, now what is the type of source, what type of application you are planning to onboard into the system? So the type of source is going to be the delimited file. We are going to configure a delimited file because we are getting the data from the feed file. Okay, so let me go ahead with this. Click on configure. Let me give the name as EMS training batch 1. Okay, for you, what you should give the name, you should give the name EMS underscore then your name. Okay, let me give the description same as it is. Then it will ask you who is the source owner. I'm going to make the source owner as official.amit. Then we have something called governance group. So what is a governance group, we'll discuss in later. Right now, who is the owner of the source, what is the description, what is the name that we need to provide, and then it is a authoritative source, that is HRMS system. You need to select this checkbox that okay, this is a authoritative source for us. Now click on continue. Once you click on continue, you will see the next page where it will ask you for the delimiter and all. Okay, so this is the, let me select the source owner again as official Amit. Okay, then it will ask you on under, let me click on cancel, let me click on save. So once you save the settings over here, go to the additional setting. It will ask you for the parsing parameter, how the file is going to be parsed. Okay, so the file is going to be parsed. What is the delimiter that we have used in the file? It is a comma. That's perfect. If you wanted to use any comment, some lines are commented, you can use the comment character. Okay, so we are not using any comment right now. Let it be hash only. Number of lines to skip, how many line you wanted to skip. Okay, generally the number of lines by default set to 1 because the first line contains the header. First line contain the header, so it is header. And then if you wanted to basically exclude couple of data from this sheet, you can then use the filter. For example, let's say I don't want to onboard any user whose inactive identity is set to true. So you can use that filter over here. Okay, so right now we are not going to use any filter. I'll keep the settings as it is. Now let's go ahead with review and finish. So this is how it looks like. Okay, it will basically show you what are all the settings that you have make over here. Now let's go to the account schema. That is very much important, that okay, how the file look like, what is the schema of the file, what are all the columns that your file contains. So right now our file contains employee ID, first name, last name and all. So there are multiple choices for you. Either you go ahead and add new attribute one by one and delete the attribute which are not there in your file. That's the first step. Second step is you can basically upload your schema. You can upload your schema directly. So what we are going to do, we are going to upload the schema. So I'll create another control C, control new, control V. Let me just save as. This is going to be all types. Let's say EMS underscore schema. This is only the schema. It does not contain any data. It does not contain any data. Now once we have this, we are good to upload it over here. So let me upload schema and let me select that EMS schema from here. The schema will only contain, you can see upload successful. Now it will ask you that okay, you have uploaded, that's fine, but it does not have account ID or name attribute is specified. You need to provide the account identifier, that is what is the native identity of the system and how the account name will be displayed. So the native identity, I'm going to select it as employee ID, and account name, I'm going to select it as full name. Let me save schema. Now here, once you upload the schema, you will be able to see all the fields that were there in your file. You can see employee ID, first name, last name, full name, email. So everything is there as per your uploaded information. As per your uploaded information, all the data is here. Okay. Now once we uploaded everything, the next thing that we need to do is the correlation part. When we talk about correlation, we already discussed. Let me just take it from scratch again. Now when we talk about correlation, that is account correlation. When we talk about account correlation, it basically talks about, let's say this is my identity now system. Let's say this is my identity now system. On the left, we have, let's say, HRMS system. I'm just putting it HRMS right now. This is my HRMS system. Okay. Now we all know that okay, right now we are syncing the data, that is data will come from the HRMS system to our identity now. Now when we talk about account correlation, in simple words, what is that? Let's say today there are two users in the HRMS system. The first user details are the employee ID is 00001, name is Amit, and last name is, let's say, Kumar. 0001 is the employee ID. Now for the second user, it is employee ID 00002. It is Raju M. Okay. Now when the sync process started, that is when identity now started to process the information that you are sending from the HRMS system. What identity now is going to do? Identity now pick up the first row of data, first row of data. Then it is going to cross verify whether this information is already there in identity now or not. Inside identity now we also have list of users, list of identities. It is going to validate whether this particular user is already existing in the list of identities or not. If it is not there, then create it, because this is a HRMS system. If it is there, then update it if there is any changes coming from the HRMS system. Now, in order to do this comparison, whether the user exists or not, right, that is very much important. How can you identify whether this user exists or not? For that we need some key field which can help us to identify whether this user exists in SailPoint or not. Now for that problem solving, we are doing this correlation. We are doing this correlation where we are going to say that, okay, if the employee ID of our HRMS system matches with, let's say, employee number of SailPoint, then it's a match. That okay, if the employee ID of my HRMS system matches with employee number of SailPoint, then it's the identity is present. Then SailPoint will only update the identity because it is there. Now, if the employee ID of the HRMS system is not present in the list of identities, means it is not matched with any of the existing employee number in SailPoint, then it will create it. In simple word, what SailPoint does, whenever does from the HRMS system only, okay, from the authoritative source, for the authoritative source, what it is doing, if match found, then link it. Link it means update it, or if there is no update, just ignore it. Okay. Then if no match found, then create it. Then create it. So for authoritative source, if the employee number or employee ID from the HRMS matches with the employee number of the identity now, then it is going to link it. Okay. If it is not present, then it is going to create it. Okay. This is for the authoritative source only. Okay. Now, if I see over here, we need to define the account correlation. So let's define it. Now in the correlation, we need to add the criteria. So let me add the criteria. So identity attribute. So by default inside SailPoint, we have the list of attributes predefined. Okay. So these, whatever you are seeing in the left side, these are the predefined attributes inside SailPoint. Okay. If you want to add some custom attribute, you can do that as well at later point of time. Right now we are going to, let's say, employee number of my identity attribute means it's SailPoint. Employee number of SailPoint. Account attribute means from the HRMS system. Employee number of SailPoint matches with employee ID of my HRMS system, then it's a match. On that moment of time, the account will be correlated. Okay, this is the criteria that we have given up. Let me hit on save. Then we have something called manager correlation as well. That okay, how the managers are going to be correlated. How the managers are going to be correlated. So here what data we are sending in the manager field, we are sending the manager ID, which is basically the employee ID of the user, which is basically 0001 is basically employee ID of the user. So how we are going to do the correlation over here for manager? So we are going to say in the identity attribute that manager name, if my manager name matches with manager ID, my manager name is basically how the attribute it is going to see. It is going to check with the manager name what information. No, this will be basically employee number. That okay, identity employee number matches with the manager ID, then it will correlate that user to the manager of the person whose employee number matches it. Okay, it will be a little bit clear when we send the data. It will be a little bit clear to you. So let me save it. Okay, now at this moment of time, what we have done, we define the account schema, that what are all the fields that are coming as part of the flat file. We define the correlation, that okay, how the account is going to correlate with the existing identity based on the attributes they share. Okay, once you did all the configuration, it is showing you a error, missing identity profile. Missing identity profile. So generally, whenever you have marked this, an authoritative source must associate an identity profile. You should associate an identity profile. Now, what is an identity profile? We'll talk about that now. Now, right now we define the application. Right now we define the application. Now my page is showing in this weird way because I have changed the resolution. Okay, let me just close it and let me reopen it, then it will be showing in a proper way. Let me close this tab. Let me close this. Let me open Chrome again. Let me go to my instance. Let me log in. Still showing in that way, that's fine. So for you guys, when you open it, it will showing you the menu in the horizontal way. Okay, so I'll go to admin. I'll go to now the connections, and we define the source over here. We define the source over here, that okay, how the employee management system looks like. Okay, now once you define the source, we define the schema, we define the correlation as well. Now what we are going to do, we are going to define a identity profile. Now what is a identity profile? Basically, identity profile is mandatory for any authoritative sources. Now what is a identity profile? In simple words, if you see, there are two words, identity and profile. Means how you are building up the profile for the users inside SailPoint. How you are building profile for SailPoint users. SailPoint users are basically the identities that you are going to manage inside SailPoint, how you are going to build a profile for that. Right now we talked about that okay, inside SailPoint we have list of predefined attribute. We have list of predefined attribute. We have, let's say, first name, we have last name, we have, let's say, employee number, and so on. All these attributes are defined inside SailPoint. Okay, these are SailPoint identity attributes. Now, right now we are defining the HRMS system. Now in the HRMS system, we have the attributes. How the attributes are defined? We have employee ID, we have first name, we have last name, and so on. Now, how the employee ID, which data of HRMS system will populate which information of sale point, that we need to do the mapping over here. Okay, that's the first part of the story. When we talk about building up the profile, means how which attribute of HRMS will populate which attribute of sale point. Okay, for example, the employee ID field is going to populate the employee number. The first name will field populate will the first name, and so on. Okay, so we need to do this identity mapping. In SailPoint terms, in IIQ terms, we call it as identity mapping. So this is one part, that okay, how you are building the profile means how you are setting up the attributes of SailPoint identities via the authoritative sources. Okay, that's the one part of the story. The second part of the story is when you build up the identity profile, you also have to basically tell SailPoint that okay, since this is a SaaS solution, there are a couple of things comes into the picture, that okay, for this particular identity profile, how the users are going to be authenticated and authorized. So we have the second option about authentication and authorization. In that section, what you need to do, you need to basically do all the security related stuffs. First thing, we are going to take care of that okay, how this identity profile users, identity profile users will be authenticated. That okay, how you are going to authenticate the users for this particular identity profile, whatever you are going to build up. Okay, then you need to talk about the security questions, that okay, what are all the security questions that you are going to set up. Then you can put some more security, you can also enforce couple of security measures, that okay, this particular identity profile users should be able to log in from which geographical location. Okay, so you can also do network based security, network level security. You can also blacklist any IP addresses and all. Okay, so this is the second part where we are configuring these kind of stuffs. Now we have the third part, we call it as provisioning. In the provisioning part, we basically talk about that okay, the users may have, as we discussed when we talk about user lifecycle management, there are various stages of a user. Okay, so if we further divide that, let's say we are talking about pre-hire. Okay, these are the various stages of a users inside an organization. Pre-hire, then we have active, then we have disabled. Let's say if someone get moved, mover, terminated, and rehire. These may be various stages of a user inside the organization. Now, based on each life cycle state, in SailPoint term, we call this as LCS, life cycle state. Based on these life cycle states, you can define what access you wanted to provision and what kind of measure you wanted to take. For example, let's say if a user is getting from pre-hired to active, you wanted to provision some data, some access to the user. When a user is getting disabled, what do you want to do? So all those things we can configure over here under the provisioning tab. So each user will be associated with single identity profile. Each user will be associated with one identity profile at least. And in whatever the identity profile the user belongs, based on that identity profile, all these things will come into the picture. Okay. So let's define this so that it will be much more clear to you when we see that screen. So when we need to define the identity profile, you need to go to admin. Under admin, you will be able to see identity management. Under identity management, you will be able to see identity profile. Open that. Now I'm going to create a new identity profile. Let me give the name as EMS by EMS, let's say training batch 1. Okay, I've given the name as EMS training batch 1. Now what is the source of this identity profile? What is the source of this identity profile? That is, this identity profile is applicable for which HRMS system? So in a real-time environment, you might be able to see that okay, there are multiple HRMS systems inside the organization, and depending upon each of the information, what kind of let's say there is a separate HRMS system for contractor, you can segregate entire thing that okay, for contractor these are the things that is going to happen. So both the things will be segregated with each other. Okay. Now you need to select the source. So I'm going to select the source as EMS training underscore batch 1. Description not required. Let me hit on create. Okay. Now you will see these three tabs: setting, mapping, and then provisioning. When we talk about setting, it will talk about what is name and description. Then how do you invite the users for this system? That is how you are going to invitation manually means there are multiple options, right? So invite automatically. So this is all about how you are going to invite the user to access your identity now console. Okay. This is about accessing the identity now. Right now I've set the invite manually. We don't want it to send the invitation automatically. Okay. Now what is the sign in method? So right now you can use pass through authentication as well from some directory sources. So right now I'm using SailPoint username and password for the authentication. If you wanted to impose any multi-factor authentication, you can also do that. Okay, that okay, multi-factor authentication is required. Now if you wanted to enable two-factor authentication, you can do that. Okay, if you want to enable, if you want to mask the phone number, you can also mask it so that no one will be able to see that phone number. Okay. Now how the password reset and user unlock method will work, you can define it. Okay. Now once you define this, then we have block access from off network. If the user is not in the network, you can define all user off network or untrusted geographic location. You can also define that. So I'm not going to use anything right now. So this is what you are going to see in under the settings tab. Okay. Now we have the mapping tab. So once you do this settings tab, let me click on save so that the changes will be saved. Got saved. Let me go to the mapping. In the mapping tab, we are going to talk about which attribute of SailPoint is updated with which attribute of HRMS system. So I mentioned for the username, it is by default taken the full name because it was defined in the schema itself that okay, this is going to be the account name, this is account ID. Now we have work email. Let me select EMS training batch 1. This is the source for me. Now which attribute? Email attribute. So this is the source, that is the application, and which attribute of the application is going to update the work email. So work email is being updated by the EMS training batch 1 application email attribute. Then we have the last name. Last name will be again updated with the last name attribute. Okay, if you wanted to do some kind of transformation on the fly, you can use the transform. We will see the transform later, not now. Okay, then we have given name, that is the first name. So let me select EMS training batch 1 and this is first name. Then we have alternate email. We are not going to use it. If you want to use it alternate email, you can use it. We don't have the personal email right now. Alternate phone number not required. City is not there. Cost center is there. So I'll go with EMS training batch 1, cost center. Then we have the department. Let me select EMS training batch 1, department. Then we have display name. Display name is set to full name. I'll keep it as it is. Then we have employee number. Employee number will be set from employee ID. Employee number will be set from employee ID. We don't have any end date right now. We don't have any initial license. Lifecycle state. We'll discuss lifecycle state later, not now. Then we have location, location code. Then we have location. So let me go ahead with EMS training batch 1 and then we have the location attribute as well. Then we have the manager. So EMS training batch 1 manager will be populated with the manager ID field. Then we have a region. Let me go ahead with the region. EMS training batch 1. Start date is not there. State is not there. Title. I'll put the title with our job title. Okay. If you wanted to add some more attributes, custom attribute, you can define it from here. You can add new attribute and you can define it. Once done, let's hit on this save button. So we mentioned everything. Now click on apply changes. Okay. Now the third tab that we will talking about is the provisioning tab, right? So right now there are only two lifecycle states that are mentioned. If you wanted to add some more state, you can give the name and you can add it. We are going to talk about this provisioning tab later, not now. Okay, this is only for the birthright access and all. We'll talk about this thing later, that what changes you wanted to do when a user lifecycle state transition from one stage to another stage. Okay, now at this moment of time, we define the mappings, we define the settings, we have created the identity profile. Now let's go ahead and import the file and see how it works. So at present, if you go with admin, identity management, identity profile, so identity management, admin, identity management, identities. Here you will be able to see all the list of identities that are present. Right now, when a new instance will be given to you, by default you will see there will be SailPoint services, SailPoint support and SE admin. These three users will be by default created and one admin user for your tenant. Okay, so these four users will be by default created whenever they are going to share the things, because these things are required for doing couple of activities from the SailPoint side. Okay, you can also delete that. Now right now there are two users, Amit and then Sukanta is there in the system. Now what we are going to do, we are going to basically add two users from this file. Okay, let me copy this. Let me update the employee number to employee ID 004. I'll give the name as, let's say, Ritvik Kumar. The manager is going to be, let's say, Raju 003. Now the user ID, I'm going to set it as Ritvik dot Kumar. Email ID, I'm going to set an email ID of mine. Let's say Coalfield Express at the rate Outlook. outlook.com. He's also in engineering. He's, let's say, senior. Uh, the position is senior analyst. So he is a senior analyst. So we are going to upload two users right now from the flat file. One is Raju and the other one is Ritvik. Okay, let me save it. Now let's go ahead and import the account information. So what we are going to do, we need to go to the source. For going to the source, go to admin. Inside admin, you will see connection. Go to your sources. EMS training batch 1, open it. Once you open it, you will be able to see import data tab. You will be able to see this import data tab. Go to the import data tab. Here, if you scroll down, you will be able to see the import option. Okay, so I'll click on import and then we need to select the file. Click on open. It is going to upload the file. The file has been uploaded. You can click on this I button to see the progress. That okay, it you can see there are two accounts that got created. Status is success. Status is success. It took just 5 seconds to import the user. So as per the aggregation, as per the import job, the user has been created. So let's see. I'll go to identity management again, go to identities. Now we have Raju.m, we have Ritvik.kumar. So these two users has been created, right? Now these two are created, but they won't be able to access SailPoint. For that, they need to register it. They need to register it. Now how they register? For registering that, we need to send the invite. As you have seen earlier, we were in this page, admin, identity management, identity profile. And here, when we talked about this, there are two identities which are using identity EMS training batch 1. There are two identities. The first one is Raju, the second one is Ritvik. So if I open this page, we talked about that, okay, how the users will be invited. It will be manually. So let's go ahead and invite the user manually. So I'll go to admin, identity management, identity profile, sorry, identity management, identities. Now what I am going to do, I am going to invite users. I'll select Raju. I'll select Ritvik as well. Both the users I am planning to invite. I'll click on action and you will be able to see invite identities. Invite identities. When I click on that, it is showing sending invitation. It is showing sending invitation. Now two invitations were sent successfully. So one invitation come to my email ID, that is coalfieldexpress@outlook. The second email went to Raju as well. Okay. So let me go with Outlook. You can see I received welcome to SailPoint. So this is the email I have received. Okay. Now you have been invited to use SailPoint to support your advanced organization security. Your username is ritvik.kumar. I will click on this register now button. Okay, once you click on this register now, it will ask you to fill up couple of details. The first thing, what is your password? What will be your new password? So let me set the password to a strong password. I would recommend everyone to use a strong password. And today we are going to send the email to everyone who have enrolled into the training. Okay. Now once you give that password, click on change password. I think there was a problem. There was a problem. it is showing your password update successful. I need to sign out because it didn't get registered. Okay, because I was already logged in, it applies the changes to someone else. Let me click here. It will not work, I think so. An error occurred because it is invalid, not a issue. Let me see whether I am able to log in with Ritvik or not. So it was ritvik.kumar and password is this. Let me click on login, sign in. So I'm able to log in over here. Your account is missing the information for password reset. Let me click on learn more and let me do the information whatever it is required. So it is first asking me the work phone number, alternate phone number. Okay. Then email address, alternate email address. So work phone number, let me alternate phone number. I'm going to, let's say, +917029522558. Alternate email ID, I'll not, let me give ag55807 @gmail.com. Let me hit on save. So the settings has been done. Now, right now, Ritvik has the basic level of access. He only have the basic level of access. Now let's go ahead and let's assign him the admin access. Okay, so I'll log in with the admin account. I'll go to admin tab. I'll go to admin identity management identities, and then I'll open the Ritvik details. Once you open this, under the access, you will see a button action set user level. Set user level. You hit on that set user level and set the user level to admin. Once you do that, don't forget to hit on this save button. So we updated the user to admin level of access. Okay, now let me log out and let me log in again with the Ritvik details. So it was ritvik.kumar. Let me hit on sign in. Now if you see, Ritvik is also able to see the admin tab. So the admin access has been granted, the users are created, and we have successfully demonstrated how you can onboard the HRMS system. Okay.